Okay, good evening, everyone. It's 6 p.m. We're going to get started on the Planning Commission meeting for Monday, July 10th, 2022. And as usual, I will welcome everybody that's in the studio audience. And for those of you that are at home, do we have confirmation of any commissioners on the, right, I want to do for first a roll call. I want to know who's on the video program. I just see Commissioner Steinbach only. Okay, that's it. Okay, so let's go ahead and do roll call if we could. Well, I'm going to call the order first, and then I could do the flag salute. So why don't we go ahead and do the flag salute? So Monica, would you lead us in the flag salute, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Now we do roll call, now that we've established who's on the video screen. So, Madam City Clerk, if you would do roll call, please.
Hello, I don't know if you can all hear me and I can't hear you. So one moment, please. I'm going to try to see if I can fix this on my end.
Madam City Clerk, can you hear us?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear us?
Hi.
Is there a way, can we?
Oh, there you are. Madam Deputy City Clerk, can you hear us now?
I can't hear anything.
Can you go ahead and restart the computer then in the chamber?
Oh,
Operate it from there.
I'm sorry.
Can you operate it from the other computer then, so that you're able to hear?
It's to do Zoom and that. Oh, I need to
Well,
mute
I don't know if
myself.
you're gonna have choices. You can't hear it from here.
I know. Just a moment. Can I ask someone in chambers to say something? I'm still not hearing anyone.
Deputy City Clerk,
JP's here to help us.
this is the
JP, I don't know what's going on. I tried different.
Mind if I take over?
we can hear you fine if that makes any
I
help.
like to use these and it just was not working. I apologize for this. It was working earlier.
Right.
No problem.
Now I don't know which one it's on because I switched. Let's try this.
Take a shot, yeah.
Oh, I hear.
Okay.
You can ask him to say something.
Can you all say something to see if I can hear it in chambers, please?
Deputy City
I
Clerk,
hear
this
you.
is the planning chair. Can you hear
Thank
me
you.
now?
Thank you.
All right,
JP helped me. I apologize to everyone for that.
we have come from the other side of the
Oh
dark
my
side of the moon.
gosh.
Okay,
You know,
well, let's go ahead and,
I apologize.
that's okay, we're good. So let's go ahead and redo this. So welcome to everybody for the July 11th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. We've already called the meeting order and we've done the flag salute. So now if we can, Madam Deputy City Clerk, if you can do the roll call, please.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Dever,
Here.
Commissioner Santos let me know earlier that he is unable to attend this evening. Commissioner Steinbach? Yep, could you please unmute yourself? Bob, I see you. I can't hear you either. We'll come back to Bob. Commissioner Stevens,
Here.
Commissioner Thompson. I don't see or hear Commissioner Thompson. Vice Chair Graff
Here.
and Chair Camerata.
Here.
Okay, Bob,
I'll note that
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Commissioner Thompson is not in the chamber.
Okay, and he's not here on Zoom either. I see Commissioner Steinbach is here.
We
need
can
you-
see him as well. Bob, you
Okay.
can hear us?
Okay,
There you
so
are.
I'm on an iPad, which is not
Yep.
what I normally do, and for some reason, unmuting is a challenge. So we'll do the
Okay.
best I can.
Okay, or I'll try to unmute you if I
Okay,
can.
well, we can hear you loud and clear, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now that we've established communications, let's go to the next item, oral communications. Persons wishing to address the Planning Commission on subjects other than those that are scheduled are requested to do so at this time. Please provide your name, address for the record. In order to conduct a timely meeting, a 5-minute time limit per person has been established for the Government Code 5494.2. And Madam City Clerk, have you received any comments regarding any items not on tonight's agenda?
I have not. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone wishing to comment on any item that's not on tonight's agenda? Seeing a no for both those questions, so we will go to item 3, the consent agenda. Item 3A is the approval of the June 13th, 2022 minutes. And if I may have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda minutes.
I move, so moved.
Okay. Okay, so there's a motion by Vice Chair Graff, by Mr. Stevens. Madam Deputy City Clerk, if you do a roll call, please.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Dever,
Yes.
we're noting the absence of Commissioner Santos as well as Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Steinbach,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Vice Chair Graff,
Yes.
and Chair Camerata.
Yes,
That's approved 5-0. Thank you.
correct. Okay. In the agenda for tonight, we have 3 public hearings. We have item 4, which is an alley vacation, item 5, which is a conditional use permit, number 319, site plan review, number 1213, and number 6 is the zone text amendment, 2022-01. I understand we're going to item 4 and 5 and flip it on the agenda tonight, correct? Okay, so with that being said, we're going to go to item 5 first, and before we go to item 5 and then to 4, I will recuse myself from items 5 and 4 in that order.
Do we need to vote on the swap of those?
It would be best to approve the agenda and
Okay.
then the chair will be able to excuse
So why don't we do that? Madam Deputy City Clerk, if you could do a roll call on swapping item 4 and 5.
Certainly. Commissioner Dever,
Yes.
Commissioner Santos and Thompson are absent. Commissioner Steinbach,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Vice Chair Graff,
Yes.
and Chair Camerata.
Yes.
Thank you. That's
Okay.
5-0.
With that,
Um,
I will.
Chair,
sorry.
apologies for the interruption.
Oh.
It did happen, relatively briefly. There is a requirement that you briefly disclose the reason for the recusal, but
Okay,
you don't have to
okay.
get into,
No,
granular
that's
detail.
okay, that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So my reason for recusal on item 4 is that it's a current client of ours in our business, and item 5 could be a potential client. And I believe I've recused already from item 4 previous meetings as well. So,
That's perfect, Chair.
okay. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Vice Chair Graff for items 4 and 5, with actually 5 and 4.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Okay, so item 5 is a conditional use permit, number 19, and site plan review, number 1213. A request for conditional use permit to allow for uses listed in section 11-1.58.04A. A site plan review for 3-story mixed-use building consisting of 1.198 square feet, that's 1,198 square feet of commercial space and 11 apartments located at 24830 and to 24838 Narbonne Avenue in the commercial general mixed-use overlay zone, and confirm its categorical exemption. This has been continued since the June 13th Planning Commission meeting. It is Tim, I don't know how to pronounce that. Racist. And we're going to have our presentation by the planner McMorrin. McMorrin, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair Graff. Good evening, Commission. Good evening, public. Before the Commission tonight is a conditional use permit and a site plan review application for a 3-story, approximately 20,000 square feet mixed-use building that has also sought a density bonus and will be providing one very low-income affordable housing unit. Next slide, please. The site is located on the easterly side of Narbonne Avenue. The lot has a depth of 132 feet and a width of 100. Narbonne Avenue is an 80-foot right-of-way that has 2 through lanes, a bike lane, street parking, a parkway, and a sidewalk. All right-of-way dedications have been made. This lot is one lot north, or this property is one lot north of a signalized intersection at 250th Street. To the east of the subject site are 2 residential properties. To the west is medical offices and personal service uses. To the south is residential and commercial property at the corner, and to the north is the Kiwanis Club, considered an assembly use. Also, on the Kiwanis property, there's a driveway apron on the southerly side that is on the shared property, or along the shared property line. Next slide, please. Mixed use is allowed with a CUP in the zoning district, in the CG zone, and there's a mixed use overlay. The general plan designation for the site is mixed use, and that allows for commercial and residential, with the residential density being 22 units an acre. The maximum floor area ratio is 2.1. This project, I'm sorry, not 2.1, 2 to 1. This project has a floor area ratio of 1.56. Next slide, please. So this presentation, I'm going to walk through the site plan and also then interweave the aspects of the conditional use permit. So we'll start with the ground floor of the project and the front portion, because there are lots of components going on here. And this site plan contains all foreseeable features that will have a footprint, and thus it accurately represents the future as-built conditions. So as we can see, I've tried to distinguish each of the components on this front portion. First, the property is landscaping. It has met the requirements for that. It's providing its 2 frontage trees. It's going to have a landscape bed along the parking area that's 7 feet, and the minimum we have is 5. We've looked out for the sight line on the property, coming from the driveway. In this front portion, there are 6 unenclosed parking stalls. All the required dimensions have been met. We're also showing the ADA parking stall, which is 17 feet wide by 19 feet long, and that accommodates for the aisle. A parking stall along a wall has a 10-foot width, and then we have 4 on the northerly side of the property at 9 by 19 feet. The parking lot also has 1 tree and 161 square feet of landscaping area. We have also had the applicant place the transformer on the property. It is recessed from the street, so it will not be a noticeable feature from the sidewalk or Narbonne Avenue. They have also shown a print for a trash area, and this includes space for green waste. This trash area has access from 2 points, one for the trash pickup and removal coming from the driveway aisle, and then one from the walkway to the north for residents to access safely. There is a 20-foot wide backup aisle. This is the minimum dimension for safe maneuverability. And then in the front portion, in this bright blue, is the proposed 1,198 square foot commercial space. It has 41 feet of street frontage. Again, there are 2 pedestrian 5-foot walkways, both on the southerly and north end, and the southerly walkway has secured and unenclosed bike parking that's intended for the commercial use, and then some landscaping around it. Next slide, please. So here is the rear portion of the property. And if we want to start at the up, there is a gate and a pedestrian walkway. So the garage to the residential area is secure. The utility meters, if you go kind of for your gas and electric panel, are recessed and not visible from the public right-of-way or from the adjacent property, because there will be a wall screening them from view. There's a 10-foot rear yard landscaped area between the residential properties and this project. The residential garage is common. There are 11 spaces in here. They all meet, again, the minimum dimensions, which, again, we have 1 for ADA, which is required by building code. We have 6 that are 10 feet wide because they're up against a wall. I wish we could see kind of the portion of it. So there's, again, a 25-foot wide backup or aisle. This is a 2-way aisle. It ensures sufficient space for maneuverability, and that means that they will be able to be used by a large variety of vehicles. Number 7 is showing you have to have on a 1-way aisle, or I should say where the aisle dead ends, 10 feet, so the vehicle can back up. The garage has access to the elevator and stairs, and then in yellow, there are 5 residential bike lockers. Oh, and I also want to mention, I don't see it here, there is a EV charging station that is also shown on the plans. Next slide, please. This is this proposed second floor. There are 3 one-bedroom units on this floor. and the rest, which is of 8 units. And what is good about that is, we need a mix. There's all types of households and all arrangements of living. And so people who want to live by themselves or couples can certainly find opportunity in Lomita. The very low income unit will be a 2-bedroom unit. They have to provide what is the preponderance of the units, and that is one of the 8 2-bedrooms. The open space area, as shown on the plans, there's both private and common. The common exceeds the minimum standards and is on the 2nd floor. If you'd like to go to the next slide. The 3rd floor consists of the 5 2-bedroom apartments, again here showing that they each have some of their own private open space, and combined this project exceeds the required open space. Next slide. So the building will have a maximum height up to the parapet wall of 35 feet. That wall will screen utility equipment, specifically condensers for HVAC. And then 50% of the ground floor building frontage is either, more than I should say, is either windows or clear glass. That is another code requirement. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, Linda, would you please go back one? I do want to point out something. So where the ground floor building is shown, that's the commercial unit. It has 41 linear feet of frontage, and it's really orientated towards the street, as opposed to, we have some projects here or there that have perpendicular orientation. And so this is really going to activate the street, and that will be a benefit for the city. Next slide, please. So this project applied for a density bonus, and we're discussing this only because the density bonus is interwoven into the project's this application. It is an administratively reviewed application, and I want to we've talked about density bonus, but I want to review how we got to the number of units. The general plan for this area has a density of 22 units per acre. Under the density bonus law, there's kind of a progressive scale, and based on the percentage of units and the type of units, meaning whether it's low or very low, the state law, which is included in your packet, and you don't need to reference this now, but I will let you know, it is subsection E that has the percentage breakdowns. And so for a project that has, this project would be entitled to 4 extra units, and we do round up when it comes to the density bonus calculations. That is a component of state law. So they go from 7 units plus the 4, and that is how we reach 11. This comes to a 36 units an acre, but it is consistent because we're using the base density of 22 units, and we adhered to the state law. This project applied for 2 concessions, and those were residential and parking. Those were for the residential, they are providing 11 spaces, and for the commercial, they're providing 6. Then On the reduction, they provide for a reduction in the percentage of non-residential square footage. The municipal code says non-residential square footage should be 30% of the project's square footage. This project's coming in at a little under 10%. I want to note two things. First, the percentage of commercial has been, the absolute number of square footage has increased because we have now more square footage for a greater residential area. There's 5 more units created than what the code would have allowed. Second, there have been 4 other mixed-use projects and in the city of Lomita, and as of yet, those projects all received reductions in their commercial square footage. So, what else? Next slide, please. So when we come to the conditional use findings, the proposed use is allowed within the mixed use district, meaning residential and commercial, and specifically section 11-1.58.04A lists the types of uses that can coexist in a mixed use building. The second finding is the proposed use is consistent with the general plan, and I think we've addressed how that is consistent. It also meets the FAR for this area. The third finding is that design, location, size, and operating conditions are compatible with existing and future land uses and will not endanger or adversely affect others. First and foremost, the commercial is located on the ground floor and it is orientated toward the street. This is how commercial activity, by nature functions. That's high quality commercial. The commercial space has ample clear windows for display and visibility. The 6 vehicle unenclosed parking area occupies the northerly part of the lot. It'll be accessed easily by anyone wanting to use the commercial site. The residential parking is enclosed. However, it is a common garage, and what is the benefit of that is there won't be any opportunity for someone to store vehicles or decide to turn their parking area into a recreation area. It's actually going to be used for parking, and the sizes are compliant with both. Along the sidewalk area, the landscape bed separates the parking stall from the sidewalk. This is in part a safety reason. You want to be able to not have the door swing out and hit somebody coming by or riding by. And finally, the driveway has clear sight lines. When it comes to future land uses, the Narbonne Avenue is designated as mixed use. We anticipate the same kind of uses developing over time. And we want to note that the adverse effects of something like the trash area, or that's been forced away from the residential uses on the southerly and easterly side. And there is that 10-foot buffer rear yard setback between the building, and they've met that requirement. Next slide, please. So conditional use finding number 4, the site size and shape is adequate to accommodate yards, wall, parking, landscaping, and other development features. The 13,250 square foot lot area is suitable for mixed use, and it exceeds the code's minimum of 10,000 square feet. The design contains perimeter walls that comply with the code's height requirements. There is the rear yard, front yard landscape areas. Utilities will be undergrounded, and meters and such will not be visible from the public right away. And then the final CUP finding is the site is served by streets able to carry the amount of traffic generated by this project. Narbonne Avenue, we know, is a main north-south secondary highway, and it's able to carry the kind of traffic this project generates No mitigation measures have been required for two other larger recent projects, and none have been provided or required for this project. Please. With regard to the site plan findings, as shown in this, well, we can start. It complies with the provisions of Title 11. As shown in the staff report and presentation, the site plan is compliant except for those standards which were reduced per state density bonus law. The project is consistent with the land number 2. The project is consistent with the land use element. The project also implements the housing elements, housing and affordability goals. Next slide, please. The development design is suitable and first, the parking lot will be served by one driveway apron. And this is arranged not to cause traffic congestion. You know, we have 2 uses that are being integrated into one building, and so that shared relationship actually provides more frontage for the building. All parking stalls and aisles have met the code's minimum sizes. We are seeing that the locations of trash, utility connections, utility meters are all appropriate. There is a 390 again square foot common area for small gatherings for the residents. And they have means of ingress and egress through walkways on both the northerly and southerly side. And then the design, as mentioned, is providing a mix of bedroom types. You know, we have some mostly two bedrooms, but also some 1-bedroom units provided. Next slide, please. This project is exempt from CEQA. There is no possibility that it can significantly impact the environment. It's an infill project within city limits. Next slide, please. So staff is recommending the Planning Commission approves conditional use permit 319 and site plan review number 1213 with density bonus number 1 for the mixed use 11-unit development with 1 2-bedroom unit restricted to very low income household, subject to conditions, and confirm the categorical exemption. I do want to mention the clerk today provided me with a letter regarding to the Planning Commission, and this letter is in support of housing in general. It's not specific to this project, but it is a reminder of the state's housing requirements. I am available for any questions from the commission.
Thank you for the presentation, Laura. At this point, are there any questions or comments from the commission? Let's start with you, Mr. Steinbeck.
No, thank you. I'm good. Thank you.
No questions?
No questions.
Commissioner? Commissioner Stevens?
Not at this time.
Okay. Excuse me. So now I guess we will open. I do have some questions though. You mentioned that the driveway is shared with the Kiwanis. Can you explain that?
If that's how my sentence came out, I misspoke. The Kiwanis will have their own separate driveway. The driveway that's shared is the one between the commercial and residential uses. So basically 2 uses using the same access point.
Oh, okay.
Versus some projects that might have multiple driveways.
Okay, I misunderstood. Next is you said that the applicant is entitled to 2 concessions and 1 waiver from the development standards. That's what this says here. Where is that so stated?
So in your staff report, page 11. Let's see how we've addressed this. We did not get into, let's see, hold on, that's in the findings. Let me see if we went into the calculations for the concessions. Um,
What government code, state law
Mhm.
states exactly that?
Would you give me one moment to pull this up? And thank you for the question. I do want to, so government code is, and you can find it in its section D2. It's 65589.5 D2. That's code is cited on page 7 of the staff report. And concessions are given on a sliding scale, like the density bonus. It is dependent upon the percentage of affordable units and the type of affordable unit. So if it is a more affordable unit, meaning very low, is given more concessions for the same number of units as a project that has low income.
Okay. What state law?
I'm sorry, Mike, if you want to go to page 7,
Yes.
and it'll be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph
Oh, I see. Okay, government code right there.
right there. Oh, actually, hold on. Let me see if that's the right section. Pat, maybe you
Yeah,
can
well, so
help me find
that
it.
that is for sure the accurate section. I'm not sure if it's the accurate subsection. I'm feverishly looking to nail that down as well, so.
Yeah, the state density bonus law is a very complex law, and it has many, many, many provisions. They're all prescriptive, basically what we shall do. And in terms of the concessions and the waivers, both the staff and the city attorney's office has carefully gone through the review of this project to make sure that we have applied the state density bonus law correctly. And so we understand that sometimes when we're talking about concessions and waivers, it gets confusing what is what. But for the most part, the applicant is able to ask for various things in order to be able to support the design and density that is subject to the state density bonus law. And that's what's happened in this case. And I think as we indicated both in the staff report, but certainly in some of the information that we've transmitted to the commission, this ends up being very much a dialogue between the city and the developer.
Yes.
Because you're trying to make sure that you right-size the project so that it is financially feasible, that it's providing appropriate units, that
And
those units.
who determines that?
Well, ultimately, it is, it's hopefully a dialogue between the two.
And the decision is made by the council, by the commission and the city council.
No, this is a ministerial action, so this is one that is born between the staff and the applicant. Okay. So what the planning commission is asked to do this evening is to really look at the overall site plan.
Right.
And then look at the conditional use permit, because this is a mixed use development. So the commercial component, you have more jurisdiction over. But it's still within the context of a project that is subject to the state density bonus law.
Understand. Okay, next is, two concessions and one waiver, commercial parking concession and one residential parking concession. So is it correct to understand that whatever concession is a reduction, say for the residential parking and a reduction for the commercial parking, those are two concessions, I understand that. But that they could, if they wanted to, request that we only need 2 parking spaces for all of that, for all of Bushiona.
In theory, but if a developer did that, they would be cutting their nose to spite their face, because the market would make it difficult for them to lease.
But
What, yeah,
I'm saying, so later on, it says here that the application of standard based on the state density law of the units would require the project to provide 15 parking spaces. And now we're only going to provide 11. Can you explain that away from the original 22 requirement?
I can start, and if Pat wants to fill in. So there is a section, and is the subsection P, letter P, and it has a parking ratio, prescribed parking ratio based on the bedroom count. And so no matter what a city says, that is the new ratio for parking. However, you can get a concession from that. One can get a concession for that.
A concession on a concession, or a concession on a new special law for the,
Yes.
Correct, yes. And so the opposite side of that coin would say that if they complied with the state new, as you said, the new state parking formula, as long as they complied with that, they wouldn't need a concession. Here you are accurate that applying that new formula, and as it's articulated in that state law, they are, they can apply for a concession from that new standard. So I wouldn't call it I understand what your
not a
thought
concession,
process,
it's a
concession, but it's, yeah.
on the new law based on the density.
Correct.
bonus.
Vice Chair Graff, let me further explain though. In this case though, it is a little bit different because we have a mixed use development. So in reality, we're providing 7 parking stalls for the entire site. So if you applied the state density bonus law parking standard, it does require 15 based on the unit mix, the combination of 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom. You do have the 15 spaces. It's just that we are allocating some of those spaces to the commercial, but they will in fact be shared between the residential and the commercial. That's one of the reasons you should have been recommended, that the commercial business cannot operate past 7 p.m. because it's understood that there may be additional residential parking that's needed, and they will be parking in that service lot.
Okay. It says here that the units of all units to equate to the unit mix for the 11 parking spaces built. I'm using that concession. The applicant has requested a further concession to reduce parking to support the economic feasibility of the project. That's concession number 3. Can you explain that?
I think we're taught, maybe it is very confusing. It still is the same concession. We have 2 concessions.
But it says additional concession.
Right, from that formula in the state law. So it's not is it a concession on a concession? Yes. But in terms of qualifying, they've already qualified reduction under state law. That's the new ratio. And then they're asking for a further concession.
I understand. And then the waiver is with regard to the commercial area?
It is a reduction. A waiver would be absolute. I mean, like, completely eliminating the standard. They're asking for a reduction.
What's the waiver for then?
The state law has waiver or reduction. It's the same category. It's the same line item. So if it was attributed as a waiver, technically it's a reduction in the non-residential percentage of the project.
But that means it's permanent.
Well, yes, they're not going to be building more square footage. We are getting the 1,198 square feet on the ground floor.
What allows for the win in the commercial parking to 75% of what code requires? That's part of another, that's the other concession.
Yes.
That's all I have right now. With that, I think we will open the, oh, sure, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Sorry. In light of what Vice Chair Graff brought up, this is basically the first project, correct, that we are doing under this density law that's mandated by the state, not the city. It gets, and I understand it gets kind of tricky, but I don't feel, I mean, we're going to be setting a precedence here, and we're going to have developers coming in demanding, this is what the state says we can have. That's my concern. So I want to be very clear and very careful how we decide this project, if it's going to in any way bind us to certain precedents with all the building that we need to do in the city. I just want to make that really clear. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commissioners? Okay, with that, we'll open the public hearing. Is the applicant present, and would they like to speak?
It was a very complicated staff report. Thank you for all that. It's been a long process. Good evening, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Alan Rigg. I am assisting the property owner with this application for a new mixed-use development. My background is as a city engineer and planning director in various cities, including the city of Palos Verdes Estates for 14 years. In that role, I developed an appreciation for staff working cooperatively with applicants to develop projects that not only meet the code, but also are the best projects for the city. We've been working with Sherry and Laura for over 12 months before coming to you with this project. And during Laura's presentation, I was reminiscing about all the detailed changes that we made to this project to make it what, and I agree with the precedent-setting nature of this, but this is a really good project when you take a look at everything it provides and all the details. We work together to both comply with the new rules regarding developments from the state, as well as to make this the best project possible, even beyond the regulations. We made numerous changes to the plans as suggested by staff, although not required, but they were good suggestions and made it a better project for the community. In a community like this, the staff often knows particulars, what kind of retail use is going to work, what hasn't worked in other projects, how to orientate the commercial space, and the mix of the units. And we took all those suggestions. Together, we did design this, the staff. And most obviously, this is the design of the exteriors. It was modified to be consistent with the rustic charm of Lomita. I would want to point out one clarification in the staff report. I'm glad you asked about the parking because it's a complicated one. The report shows a minimum number of parking spaces required at 33 in comparison that 17 were providing. And the numbers, if you start applying the reduction in parking required by the density bonus laws, as well as taking a look at the commercial space requirements, it's a lot better than that. As noted in the staff report, if we use a state density bonus, we end up reducing the residential parking from 22 to 15. Additionally, the 3 required guest spots would be eliminated for the state law. And finally, the 8 required parking stalls for the commercial space is definitely excessive. It's 1 for 300 square feet, and 4, it would be adequate. With these adjustments, we would be required to have 19 stalls, while the 17 are provided. So it's not the big deal. It's not a doubling or halving of what's required. Please note that 1 additional spot is being created on the street with the elimination of the driveway. And as mentioned by the staff, the timing of the use of the parking is different for the residences and the commercial. So this truly is shared parking, and the 17 stalls would be sufficient. I guess another way to take a look at when you take a look at the concessions, and I haven't brought this up with staff, but if you have 17 stalls and you're required 15 for the residential, you actually comply with that. It's the 2 spots for the commercial is the true waiver. I agree though with with the sharing of the parking, it makes it more equitable, but in a true sense, it does provide enough stalls. It's interesting to note also, and we investigated this with the staff, is that the development is next to a transit stop. And the state law recognizes that being next to a transit stop, you get a lot more non-vehicular, non-car type transit. And that's why we also added the bicycle stalls. We would be eligible for a further bonus to really even just half the required residential units if there were more buses at that bus stop. And that may happen in the future, but that's additional. We have a lot of things with the parking that are mitigating. We have the timing of the parking. We have the transit stop. We have the bicycles. So the parking that we're asking for really isn't that far from what's required. And from a functional standpoint, with the shared parking, we will probably have enough parking all the time with the shared analysis. Before the meeting, we spoke with the two representatives of Kiwanis that are here tonight. They brought up 3 concerns. One would be that we would have complaints from our residents when they have their activities. I'm sure with the title or the enhanced glass and energy efficiency, that's not going to be an issue. I don't know how to mitigate that further, but 2 items we could mitigate. One is we have a boundary wall that they're concerned with graffiti. And what we're going to do on our side is have plantings, a creepy fig or something to cover it up to eliminate graffiti. We would offer to plant that on their side as well, and then hand that over to them for maintenance ongoing. And then also there was a concern of our residents parking in the parking lot. We can only control them so much, but we would offer as a condition of approval that within the leases, there's a recognition that that's prohibited and that they would be held accountable and they'd be more informed. I hope you like the element we proposed. You can approve it this evening. I also hope, and I'm glad you brought up the precedent, because we thought about this a lot. And I've done this for a lot of years in different cities, both the staff and as helping developments. And the collaborative process, I thought, was valuable. And that's a precedent that if anything you take away from this, it's a high quality development. And the precedence is that even though, and I get it, I hate the state mandating local land use control and with developments with that. I know I share your frustration, but I think within the collaborative process of what we did is that they were able to, as staff, modify this development so it was that much more of a high quality development for the city. I think this is going to be a really great development when it's done. And when you have other people come in, I think the precedent is set. Talk to our staff, and they can make sure that within all the rules and restrictions of the craziness that's in the laws, to come up with something that you're going to be proud of when it's built. Tonight I have with me the project architect as well as the owner, and we're available for any questions that you might have. And then we'll conclude my remarks.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Steinbeck?
No, thank you.
Monica?
I do. So back to the parking, because everybody already knows that parking is my biggest peeve in the city. You're saying you're giving 2 commercial or 2 spots designated to the residential or to the retail commercial end of it, right?
No, what I was saying is that if you take a look at what really required this project for the residential with the accommodations, you only need 15. We're providing 17 spots. So if we would say, if you got technical, you could possibly say that there's 15 stalls and that are shared use, but we're going to say those comply with the residential component, and the extra 2 stalls, those are what we're providing for the commercial. But because that's less than the 4 required by your code, or 8 with the minimum, if you don't look at the square footage, that's the only accommodation we're looking for.
Because one of those spots is ADA compliant.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
So it's basically not really a parking spot for the residents unless, of course, they happen to be habitat. So it's an open spot. in all
Handicap stalls
intents
are
and
always
purposes.
difficult to allocate but it is in part of the required parking analysis, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear on that. And then, I think that's it.
Thank you. Excuse me. Madam Clerk, did you receive any communications on this item of someone that wants to speak?
Only that letter that I distributed to you all and to Pat. It's just Assistant City Attorney Donegan. Laura mentioned it at the end of her staff report. I'm not sure if
Yes.
Mr. Donegan wants it read aloud or just
No, I
mentioned in
mean,
the record.
yeah, reading it in its entirety is not required. Stated 7th from Californians for home ownership. It will be, included in part as part of the record. Should it go to City Council?
Thank you. Are there any requests for people to speak on this item? Do we
Yes,
have
there-
any requests for?
I'm sorry, yes, George Kivett is on the Zoom call and would like to speak.
Okay, Mr. Kivett, could you please give your name and address for the record? And the floor is yours.
I don't believe the address is required, is it?
Yes,
I don't believe it is.
no?
And so, sir, if you're uncomfortable sharing your address, you do not have to now.
Okay, yeah, that was my understanding. I've spoke many times before the Planning Commission, City Council, that's my understanding. But I had several questions. And one, I would like to hear that letter, unless it's exceedingly long. But I would like to know, what is the total square footage of the residential units at the site? There's, mention in the agenda of the square footage of the commercial, but there's no mention of the residential units, the total square footage. Also, I would like to know, what is the actual percentage of the commercial space that's to be built out? I heard it was under 10%, but 1% is under 10%, and I'd like to know what the actual percentage is. And I want to be clear, at first I thought it was 11 parking spaces total, but it sounds like there's 17 total, if I understand correctly, one of which is a handicap space. But if I had a few other comments, but I'd like to get answers to those items first, please.
So I can start with the amount of residential square footage. We are looking at, it's about 12,600 square feet for the apartments. And as a percentage of the project, commercial, 9.5%. I'm sorry, George, what was your last question?
Well, I just wanted to be sure on the number of parking spaces. It is a total of 17 spaces for both the residential and commercial, with one of those being a handicap designated spot. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
There are 17 total spaces, and building code requires one be ADA compliant for the commercial and one be ADA compliant for the residential.
Oh, so is there 2 ADA designated spots then, or?
There are.
Oh, okay, good. All righty. Well, my comments as a resident, longtime resident, and I'm fairly familiar with the mixed use ordinance. I was on the original planning commission that brought the mixed use to suggestions to council years back. And I think this really goes against the grain of what the intent was of the mixed use. Well, I did have one other question. What, out of the projects that have been approved, what is the lowest percentage of commercial space in any of the projects that have been approved within the city on the mixed-use projects? Well, what is the lowest amount of commercial space that a project has gone forward with?
My serves, it is 12% for the project at 240 Fifth and Narbonne. So the 16 unit, I'm sorry, the 21 units with Burning Daylight, and that's at 12%.
Okay. All right. Well, that lot has a lot overall, a lot more depth and such. But yeah, I really feel that the number of parking spaces overall is really shy of what's going to be needed by the residents. There's going to be a tremendous amount of parking onto the streets, and there's not that many spaces along that area, streetwise. So it's going to roll into the residential neighborhoods. If you have 19 bedrooms, you're going to have you probably have twice that many residents there at the property, and it's going to be grossly underparked, and it's going to cause a large problem for the residential immediately adjacent. And I don't think that's a good precedent. But if that's what state law might allow, but I wouldn't, as a resident here in the city, want to give them any further concessions on that parking. Also, I think that under 10% on the commercial allocation for the project is really way off base from what had been brought forth to the council and had been approved under the mixed use ordinance. And it keeps getting further moved down the ladder, and pretty soon they're just going to be building basically a residential properties, and that's basically what this is, a residential property with a small amount of commercial on it. But I'm with the present configuration, I think they need to go back to the drawing board is my recommendation as a resident. I don't like this project. Thank you.
Vice Chair Graff, if I may, I just want to follow up on the letter.
On the letter portion, yes.
As I said, it's almost 2 pages. There is no legal requirement to read it in full. Of course, if you would like me to, I am more than willing to. I can briefly summarize it for you. I've only seen it for maybe the past 90 minutes. It appears to kind of be a form letter. It basically lists all of the prescriptive nature of the state housing law, and then of course the kind of, excuse my language, parade of horribles that should befall the city should we run afoul of it. I'm not going to comment on every single sentence and the veracity of it. Should that be a concern, I would refer the Planning Commission staff report. Planner McMorrin did a wonderful job of kind of laying out the applicable state standards and kind of how the city is constrained by state law in reviewing this project. But so as I said, this letter appears to be a form letter. It doesn't really specifically raise the intricacies and details of this project, nor does it raise the intricacies and details of the city's general plan and pertinent zoning standards. And kind of, I guess, outside of that, I would be a bit hesitant to comment further really on the substance.
That's fine. That's fine. Mr. Kivett, does that address your concern with regard to the letter?
Could I stop by and get a copy from staff tomorrow?
If I may, excuse me, I just forwarded you via email the letter, Mr. Kivett. Since I have your
Okay.
email address, I forwarded it to you.
The deputy clerk sent the copy of the email, or a copy of the letter to your email, Mr. Kivett.
Okay, I heard. Thank you.
Okay. And if by chance you don't get it, you can call, and yes, you can come by and get a copy of it.
Okay.
Okay. Does that take care of your questions? He's gone. Okay.
Yes, it does. I was muted.
Okay,
yes, it does.
Okay, ma'am, please.
Good evening. I'm Susie Dever, and and Sherry Ashman are with the Lomita Kiwanis Club, and we're here to say, first of all, we think this is a lovely project. It's going to make the neighborhood look better. We understand sincerely the problems with parking. And there we did bring up this point with the applicant as we walked in. One of our concerns is that we are already having problems with customers of neighboring businesses, and we know that there is the larger mixed-use project across the street, as well as this one, that will add to that with businesses and with residents who will be looking for parking space. In fact, we've been contacted to ask if they can rent spaces from us, but we can't do that. So, but we had two other more important issues that we would like to be addressed, and he has spoken to them, but I want to get it on the record. The first thing is our hall is very heavily used, scheduled for use. Typically 4 to 6 days a week, we have something going on in that hall. It might be something small, it might be a large event, but for us, not a great big event, but we do have larger events. So there's a lot of traffic that comes in and out of our parking lot. There's a lot of vehicle traffic, and there's a lot of pedestrian traffic in and out, a lot of talking, a lot of laughing, a lot of noise, and sometimes music or something coming from a party that's inside, or a meeting or a workshop. We have nonprofits, we have all kinds of community groups that use our hall. So our concern is that whatever noise it does come up, and we try to keep it down, we try to be the best neighbors we can, and we have all along. But whatever noise we do have in that parking lot, it's just going to bounce off the walls up there, that 3-story wall here, and also the 3-story wall over the commercial area. And we, of course, there are sirens up and down that street all the time. So we are requesting, and the applicant is agreeable to this, perhaps, that we make sure that all of the windows, all of the sliding doors, because all of these units have balconies on the side, on our side, that they be heavily insulated, triple paned if possible. All of that glass work and however else it can be soundproofed for the comfort and good feeling of the residents, but also so we don't feel bad that we're not being good neighbors, because we try to do that. The second piece that he did mention, we're very concerned about graffiti. Having a parking lot and a wall is an invitation to creative people. And so a suggestion that they made was to have plantings along that wall. Somehow, whatever we can do to reduce and or make it impossible for someone to get along to that wall or to a fence. I'm not sure what is now on the plan. I couldn't tell from the plans, but whatever is there, we want something in ivy or whatever the fig or something like that would probably be a good solution. We have worked hard over the last 2 or 3 years to upgrade our hall. It's 75 years old, and the last thing we want is to have everyone drive in the parking lot now and see graffiti on the walls. So that's our main issues. We like the project as far as it goes for us. It's a good idea, and we hope it's a successful project for all of us. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, with that, there's no more, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion and the questions. Commissioner Steinbeck, do you have any questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Commissioner David? Commissioner Stevens?
Yeah. I have a question about the open terrace space and the Kiwanis Hall. I mean, you guys do an extraordinary amount of service to our city. and we want to keep you happy. The other thing, my other concern is that they're at 9.5% in the mixed use area. And I just think that we should mandate, and that might not be the right word, but the retail space needs to be more than 9.5%. And I know in the past, and we've done things in the past, but we weren't governed by the same set of rules that we're being by right now. And I don't really think that going forward, we should say, oh, okay, you don't really have to have a retail space. You just have to have this small space that we're going to call retail space, and give all the concessions that we're obligated to give. So that, and I won't even go into the parking because that's a lost cause. But it's just, you know, really key is it's a very, very small footprint of retail in a mixed use area. And it's like, are we turning it into basically residential with a little storefront just to make everybody happy? And I don't want to see that happen.
Thank you. I have a what if for the developers. We heard discussion about the wall planting. We heard discussion about parking in the Kiwanis area. And planning, we heard from the Kiwanis, we heard about windows and doors being triple paned for noise to, you know, help be neighborly, I guess you would say, with the efforts that Kiwanis provides for our wonderful city. I would like to ask the developer these questions. If this goes forward, are they willing to agree to conditions that they will put planting along the wall? I understand the maintenance would be the Kiwanis, you mentioned that before, to help reduce the graffiti. Second, the parking situation, will it be able to be a condition in the lease or rental agreement that there will be absolutely no parking in the Kiwanis parking lot? And next, a condition for windows and doors, door being as noise efficient as possible on the side facing the Kiwanis Club.
Thank you. Yes on the vegetation. Yes on the term in the lease.
Or rental agreement.
Yes. And it's a little hard on the fly to give specifics as far as additional insulation on the walls and the glass, but if staff's amenable to a condition, I hate to put in conditions to the reasonable extent practicable, but that north facade would be insulated to a upgraded condition from what is required by code, whatever the next delta is of thickness of glass or type of insulation that will upgrade from the code minimum to the next level. I wish I could give you more specifics on that, but if staff's okay with that kind of a condition, we are.
What about the windows and doors?
Windows and doors, yes, windows,
Also?
doors, and the walls would be
And the
insulated to
walls.
the next highest level as allowed by code above the minimums.
Staff?
Mr. Vice Chair, we can certainly craft a condition that would capture the spirit of this communication, of this conversation. And it's basically saying that the applicant shall enhance insulation on all of the walls that would be along the northerly elevation, and that the STC rating for windows shall exceed minimum standards of the building code.
Yes.
Now, you used the letter definition on S
It's the standard transmission classification for
noise
for
transmission?
noise able to go through the glass. And
Okay,
as the applicant was just indicating, the applicant's representative, typically that's done in a number of ways. One of the speakers indicated, triple pane windows. While that's certainly an option, that is generally not what is done. The standard technique is to provide a slightly thicker glass.
Mhm.
And that's actually much more efficient and much more cost effective.
okay,
So we would expect that that's most likely what would be spec'd for this
Okay.
northern elevation.
okay. So with that, then it sounds like the developer is agreeable to those items, just go forward.
I apologize, I missed that question.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, so it sounds like the developer is agreeable to these conditions if this goes forward.
He is, and one added one to kind of protect him and to avoid future issues. The Kiwanis people are awesome. I wish I lived next to them. Their parties sound fun. Is a disclosure within rental agreements to those units on that facade that the Kiwanis is an active use and that there are activities that may occur evenings. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fly guessing the language, but to just let them know up front that you're going to have a great view, but also there are these events so that they're forewarned. If something does happen, we can take care of it that way.
And slap their hands if they complain, right?
I know we can slap their hands, but we could definitely tell them we told you so.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. When the public hearing is closed now, if there are no more questions or discussions, do I have a motion and a second?
Mr. Vice Chair, before you do
Yes.
that, I just wanted to make one comment, because I know there's been several questions and/or comments made associated to the percentage of commercial space.
Yes.
And I wanted to comment because Associate Planner Laura made the statement that this project actually provides a percentage that's based upon the total size of the building. So given that it's a larger building, they are required to provide a little bit more commercial. In reality, if you did the percentage based on only the 7 units rather than the 11 units that are proposed, I believe it's at 14%. It's 4% commercial. So to some extent with the state density bonus law, the intent is not to burden the project with additional requirements because they're providing these additional units. So I would suggest that in reality, they're providing 14% based on the base units that they would be allowed to provide under the current 22 units per acre for existing code. So that's one point. In terms of the range that's been provided for commercial space, it's actually ranged between about 12%, and I think the highest is, 21%. So no one has actually met the 30%. I come from communities where I've been the community development director where we've had larger mixed-use projects. The 30% typically is attributed to larger developments. Smaller infill commercial developments is really difficult to get the intent, primarily because the actual size of your property is small. So unless you're able to provide subterranean parking, you're competing with that first floor level being parking or commercial space, and it's hard to have both. So I would suggest to you that the 30%, while it is a good goal, especially if you have larger mixed-use developments, it is difficult along Narbonne just because of the size of the properties. One last point that I want to make is just associated with the housing element. So this Planning Commission and City Council just recently updated your housing element. One of the programs is a rezone for Narbonne so that your mixed-use corridor will go from 22 units per acre up to 30 units per acre. If the 30 units per acre were applying today, this project would automatically be eligible for 9 units. So in reality, they're only asking for 2 additional if we had already implemented that rezone. So while it seems like it's a big jump from the 7 to 11, this applicant actually was thinking about waiting for the rezone to take place so they would just do 9 market rate units. But we suggested to the applicant that this could take a year to 2 years. We're not quite sure how long it's going to be, and that he probably wouldn't want to sit on an empty property that long. So that's why he opted to utilize the state density bonus law, because it appeared to be a win-win for both himself as well as the community. We are able to get a very low-income unit, which will be a 2-bedroom unit, and the covenant will be for 55 years. So that is a very long period of time that this community will benefit from that affordability. There will be an annual review to make sure that that unit retains its affordability. The applicant will bear responsibility for making sure that there's full compliance. And, ultimately, I think the pros and cons that you see with this type of development, while there is some concern because of concessions and waivers, we never like to quote, lower our standard. But in this particular case, I think the standard has been somewhat equalized. And that's primarily because it's a mixed-use development. We still have 17 parking stalls available, granted 2 ODA. So only 15 that are always available. And that is what's required by the residential. So shifting the parking demand between the commercial and residential, there is always the possibility that parking will spill out onto the public street, but it's a public street, that's what the parking is for. But will it be an unfair burden to the community? I personally don't think so. I think there has been a good balance between the design of the project, the requirements of the state, and ultimately the requirements that have been established through the approval of the density bonus.
I just want to follow up briefly on that. I know it's somewhat interrelated topics, i.e. the housing element, i.e. potential rezoning. And while I have heard nothing but good things from staff about the developer and his applicant, I did just want to note that post that, at least in my opinion, this density bonus, it's not going anywhere. So what you could have it be from the developer or someone else in the future is, okay, well, the new, I apologize, you said 9 units. Well, I'm also now going to apply for a density bonus as well, because that's what that's what I'm entitled to under state density bonus law. And now we're kind of in this position where it's an even larger project.
Thank you. Okay, now there are no more questions. Yes, sure.
And this isn't, don't take this personal, okay? It's just that I live in this city and I drive up and down this street every single day. And we have it zoned the way it's zoned for a specific purpose. And that's to have retail space that generates money to the city. And by lowering that space and lowering that standard, whether it be 30% and they're at 12, or it's only has to be 15 and they're at 9, it's still saying we don't really care what kind of retail businesses we get in our main corridor through our city. That's my objection. And I don't want to see the main thoroughfares of the city turned into apartment buildings that don't generate income. They generate housing, and I get housing is important, that's my life, but we're compromising the basic, the center and the core of this city. And that's my obsession with this, is we give them all their concessions that they ask for, whoever it may be, but they don't give the city any concessions back. They demand, we want, we get, we deserve. And that's where I don't want to see this city go. We're a small city. We're under doom spells. I mean, we're not a large city that can turn their center of their city into a residential area without any kind of benefit to the city at all. So, and it's not personal, it's just living in this city for over 65 years. It's important to me that we don't lower our standards to accommodate someone that's going to come in, make a lot of money and take off. That's not what this city is about.
Thank you. One more time. No, that's quite all right. It's quite all right. No more questions or discussions. Do I have a
Wait,
motion
whoa,
and a
are
second?
you saying there's no more, or are you asking if there's more?
No, I already asked for more. Do you, excuse me, do you have comments, Mr. Steinbeck?
A comment and a question, thank you. So, I'd like to ask Sherry if you have the information handy. The building that was in there prior to this construction, what was the square footage, commercial square footage?
You know, it's so funny because I was just thinking about that before you asked the question.
Well,
I believe that the applicant's architect has that information.
Commissioner Steinbeck, there was two commercial buildings. There was one like on the front, like a strip, and then there was a building
Yeah,
in the back.
I know their property. Yeah, I know
Right.
the property very well. I'm just curious what the number is.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, we would actually have to look it up. It was larger than what's currently being proposed.
Yes.
But I'm not so sure that it was that large, right? Because it had parking up in the front and then it had the residential in the back.
But it had a commercial
Right,
building in
and
back too.
yeah, commercial building and back, but I think my point there, and not to belabor the whole thing, is that, you know, to most people driving down the street, in fact, I would venture to guess that unless somebody visited the commercial in the back, no one would know that there was commercial in the back. So the retail space in the front was not very large. And you know, this, just a comment on what's being built in Lomita now on the Narbonne corridor, is that we did a lot of work. We did exhaustive work on this as a city to determine what is feasible and what will work, because of the very issue that the commissioner brought up about, you know, all the apartments we wanted commercial, and we had several developers that we reached out to and said, you know, what pencils out, what will work, because we created something that we thought would be good with a larger commercial presence and fewer residential. And with the model that we put together with heights and density and so forth, it doesn't pencil out. Nobody wanted to build anything. Those lots just sat, and there's degradation on the buildings that are there, and you know, to a point where it just starts getting run down. So once we reach this happy medium on providing abilities for these buildings to be built, then we're starting to see it. Now we're starting to see a rejuvenation of properties on Narbonne, and it's actually quite exciting to me. So, and I remember when we were working on this that it was, you know, we're going to have to make some concessions sooner or later, because that's just the nature of the beast. There's no such thing as, okay, this is what you build and that is that. That's the whole reason the planning commission exists. So, yes, it may not be exactly what some want to see. I get that. But if you think back, as long as most of us have lived here, of what Narbonne was and what it's becoming and where it is now from even 10 years ago, it's pretty dramatic, and not all to the downside. Anyway, that's all I want to say on that. But I have a question, a point of order. There's only 3 of us right now. Are we gonna vote for a resolution on this without a quorum?
There's 4 of us.
Um,
There's yourself, Commissioner Deaver, Commissioner Stevens, and myself.
oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know Monica was there. I'm sorry. It's the disadvantage of being on an iPad here. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay. It's 3rd time's a charm, right? This is 4th Oak County. Do I have a motion and a second on this?
I'll move approval.
A second?
With the conditions of, that we talked about, the windows
And the,
those items?
yeah, the vegetation and,
I have, and correct me if I'm wrong, I have the vegetation on the wall, the insulation, you said it much more eloquently than I ever would be able to, and then, of course, those lease agreement notices that the developer agreed to. Is that?
Make sure it
yes.
says rental agreement.
Yeah,
too.
so yeah, the lease agreement and then the rental agreement to include renewal agreements as well.
Okay, well, since it's my motion, I just want to be clear, and Sherry offered a good summation of that they're not conditions, that these are items that need to go in there, and that I think the language she used, that they exceed the minimum standard of the code, and I'd be okay with that, but I don't want to call out specifics of construction, because now you're getting into spending other people's money, and there isn't anybody that I know of that's on the planning commission, including myself, that is expert enough to be able to say what STC requirements would benefit any certain percentage of increase of sound deadening. So that's a whole study thing. Anytime you go outside of STC ratings, you need to have professionals do that, and I don't think anybody here is prepared to do that. So as long as we can keep it general in nature on the insulation, I'm okay with that. And that would be my
Okay.
motion.
Okay, and I think that's what it was, wasn't it?
Mr. Vice Chair, just to be clear, because there were 3 conditions that were being proposed. The first, that the applicant shall provide plantings on both sides of the northern wall adjacent to the parking lot. Second, that the applicant shall provide enhanced insulation and STC ratings that required by the building code. And third, that a disclosure shall be provided in the rental, lease agreement, and any renewals advising that the adjoining location or adjoining Kiwanis facility operates at various hours with various activities that may generate noise. Something along that line. We'll finesse the last one.
Also parking is
Um,
included in that.
That's correct. And that parking is not available at the adjoining property.
Yes.
Yes, so both parking and noise. And so if the maker of the motion can acknowledge that those 3 conditions are part of the motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Matt, is that your second still good? Matt, Madam Deputy Clerk, will you do roll call vote, please?
Sure. That second was Commissioner Dever. Is that correct?
yes,
Okay. All right. So the roll call, Commissioner Dever, please.
yes,
We're noting the absences this evening of Commissioner Santos and Thompson, Commissioner Steinbach,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Vice Chair Graff.
No.
Okay, and Commissioner Camerata has recused himself, so this is 3-0. The vote is 3 yes on this.
3-1.
3-1.
Right.
The motion carries 3-1.
3 yes, 1-0. I mean, 1-0, 1 no,
Correct.
and 1 recused, 2 absent, if we want to be specific. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to wherever it is.
Item number 4 would be the next
Item
item.
4. What did I do with mine now?
We lost our audience.
What did I do? I lost it. I did, I lost part of it. Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Yeah, item number 4 is dealing with the vacation of the alley.
Yes.
Were you able to find the right page, Mr. Vice Chair?
No, I've got it. I don't know what happened to that page of the script, so.
Okay.
Sorry, but the next item is item number 4. This is an item that's has been continued from the April 11th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. The project description is a request to vacate approximately 2,850 square feet of the public right-of-way adjacent to, south of the property located at 24516 Narbonne Avenue. The request will formally convert a portion of the public right-of-way into public accessible paseo as originally envisioned in the mixed-use development. City Council added a condition of approval to the original entitlements for the mixed-use development, requiring a vacation to formally convert the space to private property and ensure the public paseo was achieved. The applicant returns to the Planning Commission to do so. The proposed public right-of-way vacation requires the finding of conformity to the general plan by the Planning Commission. Do we have a presentation, please? Nemesis?
Good evening. Tonight I will be presenting a request for a vacation of a portion of public right-of-way located south.
Excuse me, can you pull your mic down closer? Thank you.
Located south of 24516 Narbonne Avenue. As previously mentioned, this item is continued from the April 11th Planning Commission meeting. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. The portion of public right-of-way is located south of 24516 Narbonne Avenue. The nearest major intersection is Narbonne Avenue and Lomita Boulevard. Next slide, please. The site is zoned downtown commercial with mixed-use overlay and has a general plan designation of mixed use. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. Highlighted in yellow is the 2,850 square foot portion of public right-of-way proposed to be vacated. It is approximately 15 feet in width and 190 feet in length. Next slide, please. And this is a timeline of the project. On August 4th, 2020, the City Council approved a modification to conditional use permit number 294, investing tentative track map number 74138 for phase 2 of a two-phase mixed-use consisting of 16 new residential units located at 24516 Narbonne Avenue. Phase 1 of the project is comprised of 3,700 square feet of ground floor commercial space, 5 residential units, and associated parking. Construction of phase 1 was completed in 2019, and the ground floor is currently occupied by Burning Day Library. As part of the phase 2 portion of the project, the applicant hosts a portion of the public right-of-way to create a public paseo connecting the commercial portion of the project facing Narbonne Avenue with the phase 2 residential units in the rear. As conditions of approval, City Council required a purchase and sale agreement as well as other conditions to ensure the proposed vacation has a formal conversion to private property. On December 22nd, 2021, City Council declared its intent to vacate the subject site and directed the Planning Commission to conduct a hearing on the matter. Next slide, please. Approximately 587 square feet of the 2,850 square foot vacation will be improved to create a paseo area. That area is highlighted in yellow. The remaining 2,260 square foot portion of the vacated alley will receive a re-slurry asphalt treatment. The existing curb cut along Narbonne Avenue is proposed to be removed and replaced with normal curb, gutter, and sidewalk in accordance with the standards and specifications of the City of Lomita. Additionally, to further enclose the paseo area and provide additional pedestrian safety measures, bollards will be installed along the easterly side of the paseo area. The location of the bollards is identified on the site plan. The request will accommodate improvements designed to ensure the trash and service trucks maintain access, and are still able to perform necessary functions. As a condition of approval, the applicant is required to put an access and maintenance easement, allowing public access into the Paseo and ensuring the maintenance is performed by private ownership. Next slide, please. This is a rendering of the proposed public Paseo. It's proposed to feature movable tables and chairs to accommodate additional seating for the public, as well as decorative string lighting and additional greenery in the form of planter area and landscaping. The Paseo is proposed to be used as a public space and is not intended to be used by a specific downtown commercial business. These improvements will be a step towards creating a downtown that promotes pedestrian activity. Next slide, please. Before the City Council can make the final decision and either deny or approve the vacation request, the Planning Commission shall determine that the proposed vacation of public right-of-way is consistent with the general plan. If the Planning Commission makes this finding, a public hearing before the City Council will be scheduled to vacate the right-of-way. Pursuant to Government Code Section 65402 and Streets and Highways Section 8313, the vacation complies with the general plan's element of ways, promoting the improvement of aesthetic and visual qualities of the community by landscaping and beautifying streets and highways, and by implementing development standards for private improvements, as well as striving to develop a pedestrian downtown that is economically viable and promotes a wide range of activities. Furthermore, the alley vacation, in conjunction with Conditional Use Permit 294 and Track Map number 74138, will encourage residential development and active uses in the downtown zoning district. For these reasons, staff is supportive of the vacation request. Next slide, please. The vacation is exempt from CEQA pursuant to Section 1501, Section D3. Next slide, please. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission make the appropriate findings and recommend that the City Council adopt a resolution approving the vacation of approximately 2,850 square feet of public right-of-way located at 24516 Narbonne Avenue in response to categorical exemption. Next slide, please. And that concludes my presentation. I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the commission? Commissioner Steinbeck?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Dever? Commissioner Stevens?
Is this the same? Is the map and the design exactly the same as it was last time?
No, there have been revisions. Specifically, the applicant has identified on the site plan that the existing driveway and curb cut along Narbonne Avenue will be removed, and the area of the Paseo improvements has been minimized. Before, I'm not sure if you can recall, it was a slight bit larger. It extended past the trash area enclosure, and now it's more contained between the bank building and the building where Burning Daylight occupies.
Okay, because I have the old one that was present. I was trying to compare and make sure that it had switched.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to confirm, I think that, so the driveway on Narbonne will be removed. Hey, another parking spot. And I know some of the discussion last time was with regard to where the poles are. And I guess it was determined that the poles cannot be moved east because of accessibility for the trash pickup. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And another thing too was a concern about someone parking in that area. I don't know if we can prevent somebody from parking in that area. If they just want to pull up and park side by side with the push can, I don't know what we can do. That's my only concern. And I don't know if it would be too much to ask to have no parking signs put up somehow or other in these areas to where, now, back from that, let's see, parking, of course, I guess they could park off to one side along that and another car could still get by, but I mean, farther east. But I mean, I just don't know how to address that unless somebody has some good ideas to help. I don't mean godly no parking signs, but I mean something to, whether we should do something or just let it go, and if it becomes a thorn or somebody starts complaining, we do something then, or I just don't know. That's my concern. All along the alley going east, up until, to the end of this is, it's just going to be re-slurry sealed, so it's going to look like a street.
Right, and Mr. Vice Chair, I think to address your question and your concern, the alley, given that it's only 15 feet in width, if you parked a car there, you really wouldn't be able to get by. I mean, it's just a very narrow little alley. However, that area that's right in front of the trash enclosure, you could theoretically park there and it wouldn't bother anybody. But because that's now going to be private property, if the applicant wants to propose that as parking, they would need to amend their site plan in order to be able to show that. They haven't done that at this point.
Okay, yeah, I understand. It's only 15 foot wide?
It's only 15 feet wide,
Oh, okay.
so it's very narrow. It's not your typical alley.
Would it be unreasonable for us to position there on those, the center post there, along there, they put a no parking sign?
But we could certainly look at that. I'm not sure, I don't know if Lemesis has an opinion on this, but I'm not sure if there's really much of a problem with anybody parking there. I mean, so if they have overflow parking, it seems like a fairly reasonable place for somebody to be able to park a car as long as it's not impeding any of the vehicular traffic coming in and out of the parking lots, which I don't think it would be as long as it's long enough.
If it's a short enough car.
Right, if it's a short enough car. But I will tell you that we are working with the applicant on revising the site plan for the property where Burning Daylight is located. So we'll take a look at that, and if it meets the dimension requirements and appears to be reasonable, we'll make sure that it is adequately provided.
Yeah, well, we know it's wide enough, and you could probably squeak two cars in there side by side.
Not wide enough for two.
If you got a Mini and a,
Well, maybe bicycle parking or motorcycle parking.
there you go.
There you go.
There you go.
There's all sorts of things it could be.
Put something in there to bicycle
right.
parking only or
Yeah,
something.
but thank
Okay.
you for raising that, though, because I think it is something we should look at least.
Yeah, because we talked about it before, and I think that, yeah, if you would do that, that would be fine.
A lot of people go and park with the credit union parking lot when things get filled up around there and then walk.
And SGI too, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, so there's really plenty of parking.
yeah, that's right.
We're actually talking to the applicant about that parking that's available at the credit union and SGI, because it is being used, so to formalize that relationship to the extent that we can, just to make sure that it's always readily available.
After hours?
After hours. You know, the general rule is that if you can have people share parking, it just makes it better for everyone. And so the applicant is working with Lemesis right now on some provisions that may provide for that.
That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful. Okay. Madam Deputy Clerk, do you have any written communications on this item?
Sorry, I do not.
Oh, don't be sorry.
Sorry, it took
That's
me a minute to
fine.
unmute myself. Looks like George Kivett. Looks like George Kivett would like to speak.
Oh, okay. Mr. Kivett?
Yeah, thank
Go
you.
right ahead, please.
Thank you, Mike and all the other members here. Overall, I like this idea. I think it'll be an asset to that immediate downtown area that we have there. And I'm in favor. I can't really raise any objections to this. I like the idea. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now close the public hearing. If there are no more questions or discussion, do I have a motion, please? Are you raising your hand, Mr. Steinbeck?
I was unmuting, just in case we're
Oh,
gonna have a
okay.
vote. Nobody's gonna make a motion on this? Is this the Bob night? I'll make the motion to approve.
Do I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Madam Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, thank you. That second was Commissioner Stevens. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Sorry, it's a little hard to hear sometimes. Okay, so Commissioner Dever,
Yes.
we're noting the absences this evening of Commissioners Santos and Thompson. Commissioner Steinbach,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Vice Chair Graff.
Yes.
All right, and Commissioner Camerata is recused. So this one is 4-0 approved.
That's correct.
And
Now, Chair Camerata may return to great fanfare. Well, we won't forget the Midnighters too, so. Okay, now Chair Camerata is back and we're on to item number 6.
Okay, thank you for that, Vice Chair Graff, and I trust everything went well in my absence. So moving along, we're on public hearing number 6, which is going to be consideration of an amended recommendation for zone text amendment number 2022-01 to revise attachment C, an ordinance establishing development standards for planning residential developments and multi-single family dwellings, establishing provisions for shared and reduced parking in commercial zones, and various text amendments for code cleanup and clarification to Article 15, which are definitions, Article 20, which are residential zones, Article 49, the DC, which is the downtown commercial, Article 58, which is the mixed overlay district, Article 66, which is off-street parking, storage, and loading, and Article 70, zoning ordinance administration. The applicant is the city of Lomita, and I believe there's going to be a presentation by Assistant Planner Quintero. May we have that presentation, please?
Mr. Chair, before we go into the presentation, I would like to recommend that we can actually probably waive the entire presentation. This is great PowerPoint, because for the most part, everything that you have within this staff report or within this ordinance is what was the subject of your past public hearing. The only thing that's new is what you find on page number 5 of your staff report, and those are the provisions that pertain to the planned residential development. We realized after the Planning Commission took action that while we had talked about it during the hearing, the actual language that was within your draft was not updated to reflect the new standards, which is to make sure that the planned residential is a ministerial action. That is what the Planning Commission and City Council voted upon in your housing element update, that we would have a simplified process that would be comparable to other single families that are being proposed within the A1 and R1 zone. So the language that you see on page 5, 6, and 7, 8, and 9, I think it is, basically shows the strikeout and the underline for the new language within that proposed ordinance. And again, it is specifically to language that the process is administrative, which we often refer to as ministerial, rather than discretionary. So the Planning Commission would still have a role in the planned residential development related to the subdivision. So anytime there's a tentative tract map or a tentative parcel map, that would come before the Planning Commission as a public hearing. And the planned residential development is a subdivision process, so you will be involved from that perspective, but not on the site planning. So if the Planning Commission would like to have the full presentation, we are ready to do that. But if you just want to maintain the focus on this one section, we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, well, with that being said, I do understand the transition to the administrative site plan sign off. And as you probably all know, the administrative site plan is on the planner, making sure that the plans that have been submitted are going to be within the, zoning and other elements that are required for that site plan. So that, I understand, is a pretty simple way to go. Now, there may be some comments and questions from my fellow commissioners. So we'll get to that, sir. Let me just ask anybody if they have any comments or questions on either moving forward with just reading those few pages or going through the whole process. So why don't we, if I can do that? So Vice Chair Graff, any comments, questions?
Well, I do have comments. I don't know if we have to go through the entire presentation, but I do have comments to make.
Okay, well, just specifically, do you want to do the whole presentation
No,
or
no, just
those
comments
pages?
that I have
Okay,
made.
okay. All right, Commissioner Stevens. And Commissioner Deborah. Commissioner Steinbach, anything before we? go to the
No,
next step?
I don't
Okay.
need to hear the whole thing, no.
Okay, so I think unless, do we have to have a motion to just move forward with just the
You
presentation?
don't need a motion.
No, okay, so then I'd say let's go ahead and just start off on page 5 and we'll just kind of go through it briefly. So page 5 is the revision to proposed section 11.1.30.17, which is the planned residential development. If that's where you want to start.
Now, those are the proposed changes to
Right.
the ordinance that the planning commission had previously recommended approval. So if
Correct.
there's any comments or questions on this section, or if you have comments or questions on anything related to the proposed
Okay.
ordinance.
So I do have a couple of comments, but I'm going to hold mine till the end. So why don't we start off, Vice Chair Graff?
Excuse me. I just have comments. I know that throughout the rest of the document, there are numerous, and I count, at least 15 or more, including the resolution and everything, places where the planning commission, and in some cases, the planning commission and city council have been eliminated from an approval process where the director of community development now becomes an approval, and in some cases, that's all that's required, not planning or city council. And I'm just trying to understand how did that come about and who authorized that to be done?
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll answer that. So this section is a brand new section. So all of the language is new. However, when we presented this to the Planning Commission the first time, we were utilizing an approach that would allow the Planning Commission to have discretion over the single-family development. And we realized that the housing element is requiring us to do this ministerial. And we had intended to make those changes before the last Planning Commission hearing, but when I was merging the various documents together, the older version is what got into your packet. But our intent, both at the last Planning Commission public hearing and tonight, is for ministerial for any single family. Now, as a comparison, if someone were to have a large piece of property in Lomita today, and they were proposing single-family homes, they would be able to do that administratively. It would never come to the Planning Commission. However, if they were subdividing and creating new single-family homes that were individually owned, there would be a subdivision map. The commission would determine the subdivision map. You would not determine the single-family homes. So this is exactly the same process that would apply today, but it's now being done through a planned residential development, which has slightly different standards. So there are very objective design standards that are written within this code that specify setbacks, open space, parking, all those things that we would typically want to see for single family. So once those standards are met, just as the chairman had indicated, then the permits could be issued. But just like with any other subdivision, there is also a subdivision process that comes before the Planning Commission.
Correct. And then if I may follow up on it, yeah, this was in no way a way to usurp the power of the Planning Commission, nothing like that. What the gist of this is that these objective standards I don't want to say that they're high, but they're, if you have concerns about this process, I think that is where your attention would be best suited, is looking at those objective standards. Put exactly what it is you want in here. The thought process being that, hey, if you are a landowner developer and you want to meet these high standards, we're going to kind of give you a carrot that, hey, this is what we want in our community. Do it this way. Don't ask for a variance. Don't ask for anything. Check all the boxes here. And in reward, yes, it'll be an administrative process.
Well, yeah, and that was my concern, is that, so let me understand. If this was a single family residence, if you change the title on this to single family residence, that's the way it's done now, administratively.
That's correct.
Okay, so as we moved forward to create this planned resident,
Planned residential development.
And, yeah. PRD, huh? As we move forward in putting that in place, which this is, okay, the language that came across with it was language from...
It was my earlier draft, draft.
Yeah. And so now what you've done is make the change so that if it is, no, wait, I'm trying to understand. If there is any lot subdivision, that's still, I'm trying to understand how this differs from a single family resident.
It's actually the same process. If you came in and you already had a subdivided property, all you need is a building permit.
Okay,
right?
If you already had a subdivided property, that would be, and I'm just thinking out loud, the property up on Appian Way that was off of, I don't know, what street was that?
262nd.
260th or something like that.
61st
We
or
did a
6th, yeah.
subdivision there, and they had to have that little cul-de-sac thing put in and everything. That was approved.
That's right, and you approved the subdivision, but you didn't necessarily approve the houses.
Right. Now, now the subdivision was approved, it falls under this. Or not, no, I mean, it falls under single family residence.
Right, it's ministerial at this point.
It's ministerial,
So let me
right.
just give the clarification in terms of the differences between today's code for subdivision for single family versus the planned residential development. So under the current code, there is a stipulation that you have to have 5,000 square foot lots and that you have to have a certain amount of frontage on a public street. That's a very restrictive standard. And so under the housing element, the Planning Commission and City Council recognize, because the oversized properties that we have, that it would be beneficial to have some flexibility so that we could encourage homeownership, but provide more innovative design that would still allow for single family ownership, right? So exactly. Absolutely. That's absolutely true. So this, yep, exactly. So this ordinance requires a subdivision where you have a homeowners association, you have CC&Rs, you have a form of common ownership in the common amenities, so that you all have to approve. Exactly. That's exactly it.
Based
Bingo.
off of these standards.
Based off of these standards, right. And so the benefit of the planned residential development is that innovation, you can have better and more interesting design, but it also changes slightly the density, because under a traditional single family, it's one house for every 5,000 square feet. Here it's one for every 4,000 square feet. So it's an incentive. So we're telling the developers and our current property owners that if you use this standard, one, we're going to hold you to a higher standard, but we're going to give you a reward. But in exchange, we hopefully are getting home ownership rather than rental properties. So that's it in a nutshell.
So does that answer your questions? Yes, it does. Okay. Okay. And I was going to try and tell you all this because this is exactly what we have to deal with at my office. Exactly all of this. But I didn't want to go there until you got it straight from Sherry. Okay. So
if there is a residential development, which means that there's going to be a site plan that has to be done to develop, for whatever they're going to do, that comes to us. It comes to the planning commission and then to the city council.
That's right. The
Yes.
tentative map comes before the planning, commission, the film goes before the city council. And typically, there's a conceptual site plan in terms of how buildings can lay out based on the subdivision. Right.
Nobody
But
heard what
final
was said.
design- Oops.
I'm sorry.
Mike, your mic was not on. We didn't hear any of that. That's okay.
Well, I'll
So
tell you
maybe we
what,
could
why don't we let
summarize.
Sherry just recap that real quick?
Well,
Yeah, let's
I
let
got
Sherry-
Sherry's side of it. I got what Sherry said. I just didn't hear what Mike was saying, so it was a one-sided
Okay,
conversation.
well, I'll give,
Well, Mike,
well,
Mike was saying, I'm sorry, Mike, but Mike was saying what a wonderful job staff has been doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, Commissioner Steinbeck, what I was saying was that when there is going to be a planned residential development, there has to be a site plan if they're going to split property and so on and so forth. That needs to come to the Planning Commission for recommendation to City Council for approval. Once done, the individual properties or the houses that go on those properties are done administratively. The permits are done administratively.
But Vice Chair Graff, let me clarify though, because you used the term site plan. And so it's not really a site plan that the Planning Commission is approving. You're approving the tentative map.
The tentative map,
Right.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Because it's
Yeah.
an administrative site plan that includes for the actual building location and all the amenities associated.
On an individual basis.
That's right.
Okay, Bob?
Yeah, thank you.
okay.
Sorry.
Moving along, Commissioner Stevens, any comments or questions now? And Monica, anything? Bob, any comments or questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we can,
Thank you, staff
move forward.
and council.
Let me ask this question of all of the commissioners. Does anybody feel that they still need any more presentation, or are we actually ready to vote on this? You still,
Public comment.
right, I'm just saying, but,
Sure. Yeah, got it.
but without the presentation is what I'm getting at. Commissioner, Vice Chair Graff,
I'm good.
okay, Commissioner Stevens,
I'm good.
Commissioner Dever, Commissioner Steinbach.
I'm good for now.
Okay, so let's go ahead and open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, did you receive any written communication on this item?
No written communication, but George Kivett is on the Zoom call and he would like to speak on this item.
I see that, and that was my next question. If there's anybody on the Zoom that's wanting to speak on this issue, Mr. Kivett, are you wanting to speak or comment on this?
Yes, please, but I would like to hear that presentation by staff. I don't believe I was at the Planning Commission previously when this item or, some version of it was heard before. And I don't know if my input means anything on that, but I would like to hear the presentation before I made any comments.
Okay, we can accommodate that, and I will ask staff to give us a presentation as best they can without going through the entire of the.
Mr. Chair, if I could ask a question of the speaker. So, Mr. Kivett, the ordinance that we're referring to is a comprehensive ordinance dealing with parking and various other revisions to the municipal code. We're happy to provide you a copy of that presentation if that would be helpful for you, or we can go through the presentation very quickly just so that you can see what is being covered. But I'm assuming that you have a copy of the staff report and a copy of the exhibit.
No, I don't.
You don't have the staff report.
No, and but I assumed there was a presentation that was prepared, ready to go, and I would like to hear it. I heard one thing within the just the comments that were made earlier that I'm not in agreement with, but It's not my decision. I mean, it's just an ask on my side.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kivett. Let's see if staff can do a quick presentation to give you kind of an update very quickly.
We'll go ahead and do the PowerPoint presentation, because I think that'll step us through the major points of presentation. So if the Deputy City Clerk can cue that up, and then Lemesis will go through that presentation.
It should be queued up. Is it showing?
Yeah,
It's
thank
on
you,
the
Linda.
screen. Thank you.
The current Lomita Municipal Code is outdated in some areas. This text amendment is necessary in order to comply with numerous state laws and to clarify existing language and to avoid contradictions within the municipal code. Next slide, please. The sixth cycle housing element update was approved by City Council on December 21st, 2021. It is currently under review by each CD. Within the housing element update are opportunities and commitments to update the zoning code to comply with state law requirements and support a variety of housing types. Next slide, please. These are a few of the housing element goals, policies, and programs that will be addressed within the proposed zone text amendment. Next slide, please. Zone Text Amendment 2022-0 is comprised of 3 separate ordinances. All 3 were presented at last month's Planning Commission meeting on June 13th. The ordinance pertaining to ADUs, as well as the ordinance pertaining to urban lot splits and 2-unit developments pursuant to SB 9. Both of those ordinances are scheduled for the July 19th City Council meeting. Tonight, we will just be addressing Attachment C, which pertains to the Layton ordinance, which is comprised of amendments to the residential zone, off-street parking requirements, definitions, as well as various code cleanup and clarification. Next slide, please. The following are amendments to clean up and clarify and create consistency within a variety of different sections of the municipal code. Next slide, please. This is a recap of the amendment to Article 15, which will include definitions for the following. Some of them are definitions for accessory dwelling units, efficiency kitchen, and reasonable accommodation. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
I apologize. I hope you can hear me. My mouse keeps getting stuck. And then when I click back onto the presentation, when I can finally find my mouse, it sends me back to the beginning. So I apologize for that. I'm
You know, that,
going to have to test
yeah,
something.
that's perfect. Yeah, Linda, that's okay. We're going to stop the PowerPoint at this point, and we'll just have Lemesis go ahead and summarize the rest of the
Okay.
presentation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Some of the other amendments to the residential zone include establishing and clarifying standards for family care, as well as introducing materials for fences and walls. As previously mentioned, this item was brought back to Planning Commission to kind of clarify some of the language in the planned residential development, which will incentivize new subdivisions supporting detached single-family development and increasing the density to 1 dwelling unit per 4,000 square feet of lot area. These new developments will redevelop large properties and create new opportunities for those entering the housing market. Included in this amendment is identifying objective design standards and creating a ministerial process by which properties in the A1 or R1 zone can be subdivided to accommodate additional single-family units. The proposed text amendment establishes design and development standards for an administrative site plan review for planned residential developments. Each project will be required to provide single-family homes with shared facilities such as drive aisles, trash areas, and common recreation space, which is permanently reserved and maintained by a homeowners association. The Planning Commission will review and approve the subdivision to establish the planned residential development. An additional amendment to the residential zone of the Lomita Municipal Code to create multiple single-family dwellings which are not ADUs or SB9 units. Eligible lots include A1 and R1 zone properties with a minimum of 10,000 square foot lot area. These dwelling units shall comply with all standards applicable to single-family dwellings, including setbacks, height, and floor area. These types of units are required to provide guest parking at 1 space per 2 units. Article 60, off-street parking, storage, and loading is also proposed to be amended to create regulations for shared and reduced parking in commercial zones through a reduction in the number of off-street parking spaces, a shared provision of parking spaces serving more than 1 unit, or a combination of both. This is a common practice throughout the city. The city has accomplished this on a few projects implemented through conditions of approval, but this will establish a permanent procedure and required findings. The Lomita Municipal Code will also be amended to include a process for minor conditional use permit. The findings are the same as those of a conditional use permit, the only difference being the application fee. Some other amendments to off-street parking, storage, and loading include introducing a location and dimension for compact parking spaces as well as motorcycle parking spaces. The relationship between the proposed amendments and the general plan, it complies with housing element 2.1, which supports programs and incentives to expand housing options, especially for lower income households, as well as land use policy number 9, which states that the city will work to protect and promote property values by promoting a more efficient use of underutilized properties within the cities. That summarizes everything.
So back to you, Mr. Chair.
Can you please speak into your microphone? I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing some of you. Be sure
I
you're
said, first of
speaking.
first of all, thank you for the report, Nemesis. So that was the first comment I made. Secondly, I say that we can possibly get Mr. Kivett a copy of the proposed resolution, the resolution, the amendment, so he could read it if he wanted it.
Mr. Chairman, I will note that this is a public hearing, so this staff report and all the exhibits are available on the city's website and have been.
So, Mr. Kivett, if you've heard that, if you dare to come into the count, they're online as well.
I'm always around the city hall or, close by, and, if I feel a need, I'll do that. If I could just finish up with my comments, only thing I'd really want to mention, I mentioned this many times before the Planning Commission and the City Council, is that I would like to keep, as a resident of this town, I'd like to keep the residential density in our A1 and R1 neighborhoods basically where they're at. I know there's a lot of state mandates and such that are coming down that, they're imposing a lot of things on the municipalities in California now. but I don't like the idea of subdividing these properties down to for single family lots of only 4,000, where I believe it's now a requirement of 5,000. Yeah, they're going to be huge homes that are built on these things. It would really limit the open space and so forth. And I would like to see those residential lots kept at the 5,000 feet. And that's the only comment I have at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kivett. With that, I close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Are there any more comments or questions? Vice Chair Graff?
None here, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Stevens?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Dever?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Steinbach?
No, thank you.
Okay. If there are no more comments or questions, can I get a motion and a second on?
So moved. Do I need to repeat the whole thing? Council?
No.
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
I assume the motion is to recommend staff approval.
That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Vice Chair Graff, a second by Commissioner Stevens. Madam Deputy City Clerk, would you do a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Dever?
Yes.
We're noting the absences this evening of Commissioners Santos and Thompson. Commissioner Steinbach?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Vice Chair Graff?
Yes.
And Chair Camerata?
Yes.
Okay, that's approved 5-0. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on. Scheduled matters, item number 7, communication regarding city council actions. I don't know who's going to do that. Is that you, Sherry, or?
Yeah, and I don't really have any updates at this point, not
that's
with the
good.
council.
All right. We'll note none. Item number 8, project status updates.
So at your last planning commission meeting, I suggested you might have a surprise at Founder's Day. So did everybody see the surprise?
Absolutely. That was about as
Was it a good surprise?
best of the
Yes.
target. Yes.
Right, so we're very pleased to announce that Target is looking to occupy the former Albertsons over at PCH in Narbonne. So we have received applications, or at least preliminary applications. And if everything goes well, we are expecting the Target to open in October of 2023. Now, Target only opens at 3 designated times through the year, so if they miss October, we'll see them till spring the following year. But I doubt at this point that they're going to miss the deadline. It's relatively modest what they're looking to do. There's obviously some tenant improvements. There will be a facade change and some improvements in the parking lot. They will be adding some EV charging stations and updating the landscaping and fixing the signage and all of that. But this is considered to be a small Target,
Is it like the one in PV?
which will be very, very similar, if not almost identical to the one in
Right.
PD.
That's
And so
outstanding.
just briefly, because I just wrote an article that'll be coming out in your newsletter, but Target used to always do about 140,000 square foot stores. They've now realized, because of the changes in the marketplace, that they don't need to have those big stores anymore. So about the last 6 years, their average size is about 40,000 square feet. So it fits perfectly with this particular building. So it will include a CVS, a Starbucks, and basically just smaller versions of what you'd see in any other Target, including groceries.
Another CVS, right?
Another
there.
CVS,
Another
right?
CVS, there's two blocks
I
apart.
know, but it's all about convenience. If people
Sure.
stop at the grocery store, they'll stop by and pick up their pharmaceutical stuff.
Yeah, I've
So-
gone, I've been in, I don't know if anybody's been to the one up in PV or not.
Yeah, I've been to that
But
one.
it is great. It's got, basic food stuff plus big,
Pick up your sauce and your cleaning materials.
yeah,
right?
and as I understand it, they tailor it to the neighborhood. The things that they carry and they stock and everything are set are tailored for the neighborhoods. They do a lot
exactly
of
true.
research for that, yeah. Yeah, that's really great.
There's one like that in Long Beach too on, what's it, Bellflower, down by the traffic circle? Or no, not the traffic circle, Bellflower and 2nd Street, I think there's one down there by it.
I think there is
Across
one.
from the Veterans Building. on that little triangle back there. It's another one small, I guess. So it's good. It's a huge bonus for the city, as well as the other items that were on the board, the poster board. So that's good news.
Yeah, well, special thanks to Lemesis, because she's the one that graphically put all that information together. So-
Well, and I was asking Ryan if we could get somehow a copy of that. And he said he would make plans to get us
Sure.
somehow a copy of it so we could see it.
Oh, we can send that to you, because we've got it electronically, so we'll
Okay,
send that to you
perfect.
tomorrow.
Yeah, no, it was
That'd be
nice. It was
great.
very nice. It was very nice.
Yeah, it was really nice.
So,
Well, and I think it's good to be able to celebrate the good things that are happening within a community. So Founder's Day was the perfect opportunity to have that as show and tell.
oh, yeah.
You know, on Friday night, there, you know, we had music, but we didn't have a lot of other things happening. So it was nice to see the residents come and look at the board and all of a sudden
Yeah.
realize.
Yeah, well, as
You
soon as
know.
you saw the target on there, you went, wow.
You couldn't
I mean,
miss
like,
it.
Yeah, that was
So,
great.
Yeah. All
Okay,
right, well, thank
super.
you.
All right, other matters. Item number 9, staff announcements. Anything?
Nothing at this point.
Okay, that's easy.
If I may,
Anything for?
oh, if I may, I
Oh,
just
go
wanted.
ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm echoing like crazy in there, I think. I just wanted to let you all know, in case you hadn't discovered it on your own, that the planning commission meetings are now up on the city's YouTube channel. We've uploaded just those starting in 2022. And if there's popular demand to add more, we could maybe go back. But the plan now is to just, from 2022 on, just add them after each meeting to the channel. So if you're not sure where our channel is, you can just go to the website under agendas and minutes and scroll down to the planning commission, and above the entries, there's something that says for video, click here, and that'll take you right to it. So be
Great,
sure
great.
you look your best for every meeting moving
God,
forward.
why
and
didn't you
don't-
tell us about this
I-
last month?
That's right.
Sorry. And don't wear
Yeah.
green, and
Well-
don't dress too busily.
That's right. Those are the rules. Well, and I want to thank you for making that available for the planning commission. And it's especially important if you're going to miss a meeting and there's a continued public hearing. This gives you the opportunity not only to read the staff report, but also to watch the prior hearing. So that way you'll be much more prepared.
So
to
it
be
goes
able
up
to
right
participate.
after the meeting or next day or something?
It does
like
get posted very quickly. We have JP who's helping to do all of the filming, and then Linda and Eddie will put it all together so that it can be posted onto YouTube.
Great.
Yeah, generally give us a day or two after the meeting for it to go up.
Okay. All right.
Get
Oh,
to
it will be
work
tonight,
tonight,
too.
Linda.
Thank you, Linda, for that informative update. Okay, next item 11, commissioners to attend upcoming city council meetings. We have one for August 16th only, because the 2nd of August has been canceled. So I don't know where the rest of July is, but
Yeah, there is a meeting in July as well.
that's what I thought. It was July 19th. isn't it?
July 9th.
I think we assigned that at the last meeting.
Yeah.
That might
so-
be
Yeah,
why it's
we-
not on there.
Yeah.
Well,
We-
let's-
Yeah, we typically show the
that.
next month's meetings.
Yeah, no, I know. And I think, no, Commissioner Thompson was going to do July 19th. Santos was going to do July 5th. So, okay. So July 19th is Thompson. Who's got time for the August 16th? August 16th, Tuesday, August 16th. Okay, thank you, Brenda. And with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Would
So
you, I'm
moved.
sorry, excuse me. Were there any planning commissioner items, or did I somehow miss that
Did
in
I-
all the excitement about the YouTube channel?
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I did skip over that. My bad. So this is not on YouTube tonight then. Let's just make sure that doesn't happen. Item 10, planning commissioner items. My bad. I skipped right over it. Vice Chair Graff.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to staff. They do a lot of difficult things that makes our job easier. And as far as explanation, I mean, I was way out in left field tonight on that item, and I know you made it very easy to understand what was really transpiring. And also, I'd like to just commend the city on the Founder's Day. And staff, I know you participated in that too and everything, but it was really great. I understand the possibility of moving it to Saturday and Sunday next year because of the lack of turnout on Friday night, but nonetheless, it was very enjoyable, and hopefully we can. I know there's a lot of discussion amongst the council members, and they're doing a lot of work on it already about getting more rides for the kiddies and like that. So, but it was very enjoyable. A good turnout. And it was a lot of fun. That's all I got.
Okay, Commissioner Stevens, anything?
Just ditto what he said. You guys do an awesome job and you put up with all of our, my silly questions, but, thank you.
Commissioner Dever.
The staff does a great job, and in learning tonight, this thing we voted on was a lesser of two evils, because if it came back later, it would have been bigger. And by letting us know that, it helped us a lot in deciding. So little things like that come across that you guys do help a lot. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Steinbach, anything?
I'm good, thank you. Echo the sentiments, though.
Okay, and again, my comments are the same. Great Founder's Day. Wish we can get 2 or 3 days out of it next year. Staff is always on top of everything, and that's good. And a big shout out to JP for getting our audio and video together tonight. So thank you for that. So, and thanks to our Council Patrick and the rest of the staff, obviously Sherry and Nemesis. So thank you. Okay, with that, we adjourn. So moved. We did. Second. Okay, adjourn.